Hello and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to talk about how alcohol travels through the body. How it travels through your body first, and then also we're going to see what it does and how it does all of the different things in your brain to give you such a variety of different effects. Okay, now we got that out of the way, we get our first drink. And the first alcohol goes down our throat and it ends up, as you can see on my beautiful drawing, it ends up in our stomach. Right there in the stomach, alcohol is a very small molecule, so it will get absorbed very quickly through the walls of your stomach. When it gets through the wall of your stomach, it goes up the bloodstream to your liver, very close by, as you can see. There it gets broken down. And we got the sub-product, so it gets broken down. There's obviously still some alcohol left over, and there's also the byproduct called acetaldehyde. These two go then up the bloodstream, through your heart, all the way up in your head, where it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and finally it enters your brain. At this point we've also probably been noticing the first actual physical effect of drinking alcohol, and this is a process called vasodilation. Vasodilation means that your blood vessels are just expanding a bit, and this gives you the feeling of just being a bit more warm. Right now the alcohol has arrived at the brain. However, we must first talk about some terms and some knowledge about how the brain actually works before I can teach you more about what actually happens in there. So again, I have quite a beautiful drawing of a neuron right here. Inside your brain there are about 200 billion neurons. These neurons have a function of sending messages through impulses. These messages contain information about emotion, laying down memory, sleeping, your thoughts, just everything. They are just the foundation of your body, and they are super important. Right here I have drawn two of these neurons. However, they do look a bit more complicated, so I'll put an image of a better looking one, because these are very simplistic. However, as you can see, there's two neurons right here, and the impulse or the message gets sent from one neuron through the long part, this is called the axon of the first neuron, then it goes over to a second neuron. The place where this actually happens is called a synapse. We're going to talk more about that one later. And the chemicals that bridge the gap here are called neurotransmitters. Now that we know that right here is a place where neurotransmitters are getting released to then get picked up by some receptors on the dendrites, we're going to talk about the two most important neurotransmitters. These are gamma aminobutyric acid. From now on we'll start calling it GABA, that's a lot easier. And we have glutamate. These are actually the thing that turns your brain on and off, simplistically said. So glutamate will actually make you more active, so it's putting your brain on, and GABA will make it more sleepy, and it will, for example, be more used when you're going to sleep, and then it turns your brain off. And also it can turn other parts of the brain off, but we'll get into that very soon. Now, both of these neurotransmitters, GABA and glutamate, are very important for everything in your brain. Laying down memories, thinking, emotions, feelings, all of these things are mostly moderated by these two. And so, for example, when an impulse is sent in one neuron, let's zoom in on this place right here, the synapse, then the impulse might be, for example, the glutamate release, that a glutamate will be released and it then will be picked up by a receptor, and that will make you, for example, more active. So as you can see on this beautiful drawing right here, we have the first neuron, the axon of the first neuron connecting with the dendrite of the second neuron. This is how a message or a chemical is sent over from one neuron to another. Now, there is another very important type of neurotransmitter that you must know before we can move on, and this is the neuromodulator. There's a small difference. This chemical will actually modify your brain response instead of actually affecting it directly. Popular ones that you might know are, for example, adrenaline or dopamine. These neuromodulators will be more connected with feelings more than actions. Now, alcohol, just like any drug, is something affected very much by both the neurotransmitters and the neuromodulators. However, the difference with alcohol is that it has so many receptors for a lot of different neurotransmitters and neuromodulators, and that actually is a reason why there's so many different experiences and feelings and effects that people can experience when they drink alcohol. But right now you definitely know enough about how the brain works. So I have quite a beautiful graph right here that we're going to construct to maybe give you more of an idea of how exactly drinking alcohol affects and how much alcohol gives these and that type of effects. Let's put this graph on the wall right here. Beautiful. We'll call this axis the time axis. So, and right here we'll get the blood alcohol concentration, or in other words, like basically how much alcohol there is in your blood. This will be measured in amount of milligrams of alcohol over 100 milliliters of blood. So we have found ourselves in a beautiful party, there's a lot of people, very good music, and we think, okay, let's have a drink, I kinda like this party, so we might start drinking. And when you get your first couple of drinks, just a few, maybe one or two, you'll reach a point of 20 milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood. Now at this stage you will feel more relaxed, you feel a bit more social and a bit more warm. It's a very nice feeling, and this feeling occurs because the GABA system is turned on. So there is a more release of GABA. As we just told you, GABA is the neurotransmitter that turns parts of the brain off, so you feel more relaxed. For example, anxiety will be much reduced, and you will feel just more yourself and less anxious. You'll be also much more less aware of your surroundings. Now, till now, GABA seems like quite a good thing. It just makes your evening much more fun. True, at this first couple of stages, but you must also know that GABA can also turn other parts of your brain off. For example, it can turn the parts of your brain of judgment off. You might think, okay, it's quite fun because now you don't really judge yourself on your dance moves anymore and you start going wild on the dance floor. However, it can also turn parts of your brain off, just like your consciousness. Or even in the worst case, your brain can turn itself fully off. That means you cannot breathe on your own anymore and you will die. And this is actually what's called alcohol poisoning. So alcohol poisoning is caused by a release of way too much GABA, and then finally it will just turn off your brain altogether. But luckily that's not where we are yet. We have just drunk a couple of drinks and nothing is going wrong yet. Have you ever maybe found yourself in a party where you decided beforehand you were gonna drink maybe one, maybe two drinks, however you end up kind of binging or drinking way more than you were expected? Well, this happens because when you drink a little bit more, you will find yourself much less in control of things. And this is because when you drink a bit more, the first part of your brain that actually gets switched off is the frontal cortex. The frontal cortex is the part in your brain that tells you to stay in control. So arriving at this stage, we're now at about 50 milligrams of alcohol per 100 milliliters of blood. When we reach this level, we might start doing things that we were not intending to do. Just minor things, no big, we're not going to start any fights yet. It's just maybe you have some principles that you might throw out the window right now. You're only going to drink one drink. Well, you might now drink 3 or 4 or even binge. When you stop smoking, you might get some urges to maybe pick up a cigarette and things like that. But not yet big, just some minor urges maybe to do things that you weren't really intending on doing. If at this point you keep drinking, we will arrive at the 80 milligram percent point, and this is the drinking driving limit. So you cannot be above this and drive a car. This is because you're stimulating your GABA even more, remember, the things that makes you more sleepy, but now also you get a full glutamate block. So your glutamate is starting to get blocked. This means, remember, glutamate keeps you awake. So a really deadly combination from one, the part that makes you more sleepy being more released, and then the other part that keeps you awake getting blocked off more. So this is a very dangerous combo, and that's why this is the limit for drinking and driving. This is also paired with a loss of coordination, balance and reaction time. So it's a very good limit to put on drinking and driving, because loss of reaction time and coordination are not a good combination for when you want to drive a car. Okay, I'm gonna move this a bit more to the side. Okay, just like this. So, in the rise of your blood alcohol concentration, there will actually be a couple more neuromodulators that will be affecting your brain. First of all, because there are actually a couple of ones, but we're going to talk about the main three. The first one is serotonin. Serotonin is a mood enhancer that you may already have heard of. It also produces the effect we call beer goggles. So it's basically you finding other people more attractive than you would if you were sober. And this way actually alcohol gives it quite the same effect, just like MDMA and ecstasy. So yeah, that's kind of crazy. However, serotonin has two uses. It also can create a very sick feeling and some pain in your stomach, and that actually makes you to vomit. And we talk quite loosely about vomiting when we go out and party. You probably know some friends, maybe you have had this happen yourself, that you have to really vomit and throw up because you have drunk so much. Well, it's actually not something we should go over so lightly, because actually what happens when you vomit, it is the one thing that stops you from dying. When you vomit, your body is able to get rid of enough alcohol so that you just not die. If you were not to vomit, you would literally die. Anyway, the second neuromodulator you will definitely know, and it is dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical that makes you very motivated, gives you a lot of energy. So it probably makes sense that if more dopamine is released in your night out, you will become much more loud, much more active, but this also means that you might get yourself finding yourself in a lot of arguments, as your self-control goes down because of the alcohol, but your dopamine goes up. You can start to become quite loud and quite obnoxious, and you maybe start arguments, maybe even start fights. So this is also kind of a deadly combination, self-control down and dopamine up. Dopamine is also very responsible for laying down behavioral patterns. That means if you're an addict, if you're addicted to not only alcohol but really anything in general, this is probably has to do with dopamine. And then the last neuromodulator are endorphins. Endorphins are a natural opioid that gives you a lot of pleasure feelings, but it's also your brain's natural response to numb or to reduce your pain. So this is also something that you might know from the runner's high. This is when runners run a lot and they get into the zone where they don't really feel anything. This is a natural opioid that reduces that pain. Now, back at the party where I was explaining all this very interesting knowledge, well, you were probably in the back drinking some more. So while I'm explaining, you were drinking, and you have now reached 150 milligrams per cent. At this point, your brain will kind of start blocking out your ability to lay down memory. This is also an effect of the GABA, and the more we drink, as you may have realized, the more GABA will be produced. At this point, when your memories are getting stopped to lay down, that means that you experience a blackout. So around this place, we can start to experience blackouts where we don't really remember anything. Well, that means that you've probably drank a little bit too much. From this point also, we will experience the three neuromodulators that we have just talked about, so you possibly might start vomiting and experiencing any other of these effects. And even though you are vomiting and having not a pleasurable night anymore, you may decide to keep drinking. So you down a couple more drinks and you find yourself at 250 milligrams per cent. At this moment, there is a full, complete glutamate block. This means that there is no more memory. Your memory is shot and you will not be laying down any more memory. Also, your brain centers that focus on coordination are completely getting shut off. This means that you will just start falling over constantly. This is also the term leggless. At this point, you'll also start doing stupid things. So we've seen in the past, you'll start doing maybe more things that you wouldn't really do when you were sober. But from this point, you will actually start doing some stupid things. So when a smoker, for example, has really quit and he gave it his all and he has not smoked, at this point he doesn't really know anymore that he's doing something stupid, so he'll just pick up a cigarette and he will break his streak. Other things like really getting into fights, like At first we can get into fights, but right now we just really don't know anymore what we are doing, and that the things that we are doing that are wrong, and our perception of where we are, everything is just a complete loss of insight. And I know I've been all excited about this video, but there's actually also a lot of sad cases. For example, a case of Natalie. It's a 16-year-old girl. It's a story from in the UK or America, I'm not quite sure. And she drank a lot from a party. There she collapsed and the ambulance was called. She was driven on the highway, and on the highway she opened the doors of the ambulance and she fell out. She died then and there, and that just illustrates kind of the point, like, it's a complete loss of insight. You will not have any clue what's happening, where you are, or what you're doing. So if you find yourself at this point, yeah, you're not doing quite well, if I might say so. And even if this was not enough, you keep drinking. You keep drinking, what will happen after you have reached this point? Well, first of all, your body and your entire system will start going into anesthesia. You may know this term from the medical anesthesia, and it is actually quite the same, because when you're put into anesthesia, for example, when your wisdom teeth are getting pulled out, you may go asleep and you get like a mask put on and you get anesthesia. What actually happens is it plays right up onto the GABA and the glutamate systems. So it's basically exactly the same, but you have a mask on your nose because you cannot breathe anymore on your own. However, when you're at a party, there's probably not going to be any type of oxygen mask or something to ventilate you. So what happens when you keep drinking? At a point of, I know it's a horrible scale by the way, but when we reach the point of 400 milligrams per cent, we will start going in a state of stupor. We will not feel anything anymore. When you keep drinking then, because yes, why not? Why wouldn't you drink a little bit more? Finding yourself at 500 milligrams per cent, you will start finding yourself, you won't really find yourself, but you will be in a coma. So this is the stage where you will be in a coma, you'll go to the hospital. But if you have more alcohol, if you have more milligrams of blood in your system, then it might become fatal, as at around 600 milligrams per cent, it will become your final night out, as you'll stop breathing because your body can't do anything on your own. GABA has completely shut off your brain, and glutamate is nowhere to be found. So yeah, if you look at the graph, maybe stay more on the lower end if you do decide to drink. Wouldn't recommend really going up there, as it might, the evening might not be so fun anymore. Anyway, obviously when you look at a graph and when you listen to me speaking, there's a lot of different experience for different people. There's things like tolerance. Some people will just have such, like, genetically, or even just building up a tolerance, and they can just drink much more as the average person. If you never drink, you might reach stages of this earlier, and an alcoholic will reach them way slower. So this was it for today's video. I really enjoyed making it because I think it was a very interesting topic. I learned a lot about it myself while reading the book Drink from Professor David Nutt. I will put the book and just the source in the description. I really recommend reading the book. But if you like more of these types of videos about your health and your brain and your body, then I would really suggest you to subscribe to the channel, because that's really what I want to focus on. I just want to bring knowledge to the world that a lot more people should know about. And I definitely think that drinking, whether you drink or not, is something you should decide for yourself individually, but you must know what it does, the risks, and if you must know all the things that are coming with it if you decide to go for it. So definitely choose whatever you like, but you must be an informed chooser, I'd like to say. Anyway, this was it for today. Smash the like button if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya. Hoppa.